Welcome to Crossroads Hotel, where the Malawi Economics Justice Network MEGIN has organized a workshop in which there are the CSOs and stakeholders to validate and disseminate information on the study that they conducted. And I am Sam Kalimba. We wish you all the best as you watch the Lunta television, and I am with Henry and Gerard here at Crossroads. Otherwise, the study was done by the Malawi Economics Justice Network MEGIN to assess the status quo of the civil society organizations' regulatory threats and lapses and their impact on CSO operations in Malawi. The guest of honor is expected to come from the Malawi Human Rights Commission. Enjoy the watch.
Let me call the meeting to order. Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. Apologies for starting a bit late, but not the same. We hope and believe that we will do justice to the program before us. Allow me, before we get into the nitty-gritties of the day, invite Chimwemwe from MEGIN to offer a word of prayer. Chimwemwe. Thank you very much. Allow me to recognize the presence of Mr. Peter Chisi, who is the Director of Civil and Political Rights from the Malawi Human Rights Commission, sitting in for the Executive Secretary. Let me also recognize, in absentia, but he's on the way, Dr. Felix Lombe, who is the CEO for HOLA. He will be joining us in a minute. Mr. Robert White, who is the CEO for Chiritonse Foundation, and Mr. John Chibeta from our cooperating partners, Save the Children. You're welcome. Our distinguished partners from MISA Malawi, I've seen Mr. Jitsulo sitting in for the chairperson for MISA Malawi, and all our distinguished partners and MEGIN Secretariat. Welcome. We are gathered this morning to validate a study report that was done by Malawi Economic Justice Network MEGIN with the financial support from Norwegian Cheched and Dan Cheched, and a project that MEGIN is implementing, which is to do with fighting inequalities. The study is looking at issues of civic space. And I don't want to get into the nitty-gritties of that because we have the whole presentation that is going to speak about that. But I think you and me understand and know the status quo as of now, because almost each and every day we see on the social media people complaining that they are being threatened, people complaining that they are being followed, and all that stuff. So we want to understand and appreciate the status quo as of now, and what is it that we can do as a way of recommendation to the issue before us. So that's the whole essence of us gathering this morning. And allow me also to recognize Mr. Michael Kayatsa, who is the chairperson for Human Rights Defenders Coalition and also executive director for Center for Human Rights and Rehabilitation. Welcome, sir. So our program for the day is very brief. We will have keynote speech by our guest of honor from the Malawi Human Rights Commission, who is going to officially open. And after him, we'll go straight into the presentation of the study findings, which our consultant will take us through. And after that, we'll have a panel of discussion to dig deep into the issues that are going to be highlighted by the presentation. After that, I think we'll get into a plenary discussion, and then we'll have lunch, and that will be it for the day. We plan to close by latest 12:30, so that being a Friday, we adhere to Friday's principles. So that's briefly how the day is going to be like. But before we do that, we'll do a round of introductions just to appreciate who is in the room and from which institutions, so that we are able to know each other and interact from a knowledge point of view. So we'll start with my immediate right. My sister is sitting, but I think officially, let me introduce our guest of honor first, Mr. Chisi, who is sitting in for the Executive Secretary for Malawi Human Rights Commission. Mr. Chisi, you may.
Good morning, everyone.
And also our distinguished panelists, let me also just introduce them for now. Mr. Michael Kayasa, who is the chairperson for Human Rights Defenders Coalition. You may want to start, sir. And Mr. Chisulo from MISA Malawi. And Dr. Felix Lombe, who is the CEO for Angola, is on his way. So when he's here, we'll also introduce him. So we'll do a round of introductions for us to get to know who is here.
Good morning. My name is Goli Konje from Catholic Commission for Justice and Peace as a programs officer. Thank you.
Good morning. I am Alice Nkunga from Civil Society Organization Nutrition Alliance, Sisona.
Good morning. I'm Blessings Nyamasauka from NGO Coalition on Child Rights, Project Officer. Thank you.
My name is Mahara Rongwe from a company called VML Global. I'm the consultant that worked on this report that we're discussing today. Thank you so much.
My name is Blandina Samimba from Malawi.
My name is Samuel Lukere, representing the Civil Society Social Protection Network.
I'm John Chipeta, Save the Children.
I'm Tadam Pande from Medjin as a project officer.
I'm Chimamwe Songirauni from Malawi Economic Justice Network as male personnel.
morning, everyone. My name is Winston Mwale from Africa Brief. Thanks so much.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dingan Miti. I'm Program Manager at Jonoids. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Austin Mumba, representing Christian Infrastructure of Malawi programs.
Good morning, my name is Joan Chinga, and I'm from Global Platform Malawi. I'm the Economic Justice Officer.
Good morning, all. I'm Christabel Komakoma, and I'm Programs Manager for Malawi Health Equity Network. Thank you.
Everyone, my name is White, and I work for Titi Tonse Foundation. Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Doreen Tom. I'm from Christian Aid as the Program and Partnership Coordinator.
Good morning, my name is Robert, not White, but Kwezalamba, Co-Chair Human Rights Consultative Committee. It's good to have you here. Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Winston Koma from Citizen Alliance.
Good morning, I'm Patso Jesman from Kongoma.
Good morning, my name is Kondwani Hara, Center for Social Consent Project Officer.
Thank you very much, all of us, for ably introducing ourselves. And at this juncture, we know who is in this room, which institutions. So we'll proceed with our program by inviting to the podium our guest of honor from the Malawi Human Rights Commission, Mr. Peter Chisi, who is the Director of Civil and Political Rights from the Malawi Human Rights Commission. Our guest of honor, please.
Once again, good morning, everyone. As it was clarified earlier on, I am here representing our Executive Secretary, Madam Habiba Osman, who had been invited to grace this meeting in her capacity as a guest of honor. So what I will do is to read the remarks on her behalf. Before doing so, allow me to recognize senior management at the Malawi Economic Justice Network, who are here this morning. Let me also recognize the consultant from VML Global, Mr. Mahara Longwe. I recognize Mr. Robert White from Titose Foundation. All senior colleagues from the civil society organizations, Mr. Kayatsa, the chairperson of HRDC, Mr. Robert Mkwezalamba, the board chair for HRDC, representative from MISA Malawi, as well as all NGOs and other actors in this room this morning. On behalf of the Executive Secretary, Madam Habiba Osman, I am delighted to be part of this meeting this morning, where we are receiving and validating a report on the assessment of the status of civic space in Malawi. As you may with a bit of, because on one hand, we are a state institution established by the Constitution under Section 1, and on the other hand, we are also recognized to be part of the civil society, although legally not necessarily correct, but our work complements civil society, and the works of civil society complements the work of the Malawi Human Rights Commission. So in this regard, I'm filled with gratitude to acknowledge the recognition by Megin in asking the Human Rights Commission to grace this occasion and deliver a keynote address. Thank you, Megin, for this recognition. Just briefly about the Human Rights Commission, like I've said, we are established by the Constitution, especially Section 129, with a mandate to promote and protect human rights in the broadest sense possible. And specifically, our work is regulated by the Human Rights Commission Act, which has actually explained in detail what is it that we can do. And some of the sections under Section 13 enlist the following functions and responsibilities for the Human Rights Commission. One is to act as a source of human rights information for the government and the people of Malawi. Two, to assist in educating the public on and promoting awareness and respect for human rights. Thirdly, to promote more particularly the human rights of vulnerable groups such as children, illiterate persons, persons with, as well as the elderly. And D, to consider, deliberate upon, and make recommendations regarding any human rights issues on its own volition or as may be referred to it by the government. Having said that, by way of a brief background to the Human Rights Commission, let me now briefly talk about the agenda that we have today. We'll be talking about the civic space and its status in Malawi. So civic space is the environment that enables individuals and civil society organizations to participate in public life and is the cornerstone for democracy. It has protected freedoms of peaceful assembly, association, and expression, allowing people to organize, voice opinions, and be accountable. Therefore, a healthy civic space is essential for functioning democracy, while restricting it can lead to censorship, threats, violence, and a general decline in democracy, fairness. Civic space is both a physical as well as virtual and legal space where non-government organizations can participate in public life without fear of intimidation, harassment, or reprisals. It relies on fundamental rights of expression, peace, association. This civic space enables citizens to organize, communicate, and society. It is allowing people to shape reforms and hold leaders accountable for civil society organizations to operate, act as watchdogs, advocate for policy changes, and represent civic space, allow citizens to demand rights and hold power to account. Therefore, what are some of the preconditions for a healthy civil society? I think these we'll discuss later, but now allow me just to enlist some of them. One is legal protection. Civic space requires legal protection. Government must protect the right to associate, assemble peacefully, and express views with minimal restrictions. Number 2 is support for civil society. This includes providing CSOs with access to funding, supporting their leadership, and engaging in meaningful dialogue with them. Number 3, access to information. The public needs to have access to information. And number 4, media freedom. A free and open media is an integral part of a healthy civic space. And finally, the issue of safety. This requires an environment free from intimidation, harassment, and reprisals, both online as well as offline. We have noted recently that cyberbullying is becoming a big threat to civil space. As we sit here, we are aware that there is a long history of human rights and civil society in this country, from the colonial times, one-party state, and now that we are in the multi-party democracy. Civil society movement has grown in numbers and diversity, but as the movement is growing, so have been the challenges. Just looking back the past few years, we see that a number of human rights institutions have folded. Some human rights activists have been swallowed in politics or have gone for greener pastures. We need to ask, what is happening to this sector? What future awaits the current institutions and their leaders? Today's meeting is a timely meeting so that we can reflect on some of the challenges facing civic space, so that we can also look at ways of protecting the institution. In terms of gender equality, there is no doubt that civic space in Malawi has been dominated by men. Just as we seek inclusion in political participation, we should also seek inclusion in the civic space. However, one cannot forget the works of some notable women in this country that have led the cause for human rights. So you think of people like Vera Chirwa, Amy Chanika, Rini Kachere, Emma Kalia, among others. These were champions of gender equality and women's rights in Malawi. As we celebrate their achievements, we should also consider ensuring that the environment allows more and more women to participate and make their voices heard. In conclusion, let me look at what we consider some of the threats to civic space. So we have restrictive legislation. For instance, the NGO Amendment Act of 2022 can be used to silence NGOs working on political issues through its power to deregister NGOs. Limited right to strike. I think there has been an amendment to the Labor Relations Act, which now seems to indicate the number of times that some sectors can actually go slow on labor or lay down their tools, which is like 3 times a year. This is a restriction. We also have bans on media, and these have come from regulatory authorities, and sometimes media institutions have been forced to stop their broadcasts for some programs which have been seen to be unpalatable to some sectors of society. Then we will also look at arrests and threats, violence against human rights defenders. So some recent examples include the arrest of Joshua Chisambele, arrest of Bon Kalindo, the attacks against Mr. Namiwa, as well as the threats against journalist Grigore Gondwe, who was forced to run outside the country for some time. Now, these recent attacks against Mr. Namiwa were not an isolated incident, but they are part of a broader and deeply concerning pattern of politically motivated violence and intimidation targeting civil society. We recall that in 2023, human rights defenders, civil society activists, journalists, some opposition figures, and other peaceful protesters were repeatedly subjected to threats, assaults, and harassment, often in full view of state security agencies. Now, what is worrying is that this pattern was not contained until after regime change. So now we can celebrate that the police have taken some action, and some people are answering for their actions. But we would have loved that these actions should have taken place there and then. And besides some of these, we also noted some attacks against teachers as well as other public servants who were protesting against low wages. In conclusion, as we sit here this morning to receive and comment on the report on the status of human rights defenders in Malawi, let us take a few moments to reflect on the following. One, what are the opportunities for the work of human rights defenders in Malawi? What are the enablers for the civic space to continue to grow and expand? Secondly, how inclusive is the civic space in Malawi with respect to gender representation and involvement of vulnerable as well as minority groups? And number four, what are the current and future threats to civic space in Malawi? On our part, as a national human rights institution, we will continue to play a pivotal role in ensuring that the rule of law is protected and jealously guarded. All of us as stakeholders, let us stand together as we call upon the state to put in place a system that is going to be prompt in ensuring that cases of violations against human rights advocates and all violations are investigated timely to allow justice to take its course against all perpetrators without bias. Once again, let me congratulate and commend the Malawi Economic Justice Network for conducting this assessment on the status of civic space in Malawi and sharing their findings today. The dissemination of this report must not be an end, but the beginning of more work in protecting and defending the civic space. We must utilize all avenues, including engaging with Parliament, the judiciary, as well as the executive arm of government, to respect human rights defenders and allow the civic space to flourish in this country. Human rights principles on which our constitutional democracy was founded must not be shaken, but be buttressed with good governance, rule of law, and respect for human rights. With these few remarks, once again, let me congratulate Mejin, welcome you all to this meeting, and wish you fruitful deliberations. Thanks everyone for listening, and may God bless Malawi.
I think he deserves a big round of applause. It's quite comprehensive speech, very informative. I think hearing him, I was like, I think we can go straight into the discussions because his speech is very comprehensive and has touched a number of issues that I think the study will also touch on. Thank you so very much, sir, for such a comprehensive keynote address that has set the pace for our discussion this morning. In a special way, let me recognize the presence of the CEO for Angola, Dr. Longwe. You're welcome, sir. And you put us in the middle of our keynote address, so probably you can just stand and wave the people so that those that doesn't know you. And as we also congratulate you for taking up the position at Angola, and we hope and believe, being one of us, you deliver in your mandate, and we are here to support you if need be. Thank you so very much, Doctor. We will proceed with our program. We'll get straight into the presentation of the highlights of the study report. And then after that, we'll move on with the rest of the program. So let me invite to the podium Mr. LILONGWE, who is the consultant for this exercise, to take us through the presentation. Mr. Mahala.
Thank you very much, Director of Ceremonies, Mr. Banda. Guest of honor, Mr. Peter Chisi from the Malawi Human Rights Commission. Other dignitaries that are part of this meeting, like the chairperson of the HRDC, Bonakayasa, the CEO of Ongora, Dr. Rombe, Robert White, the CEO for the Litonse Foundation, Kwezalamba, and so many of us that are here. I'm not putting on my glasses, so some of the faces I can't see properly, but all of you. It's good also to interact with some of the people that I used to interact with a long time ago, way back when I was at NAC.
We will have a better picture if you are on the right of the podium.
Okay. Yeah, so thank you so much. Again, just to introduce myself, Mahara LILONGWE. I'm a consultant for a company called VMware Global. Is duly registered with the proper offices. It's not a briefcase one. Those of you that know where the Legal Aid Bureau is, we are just neighbors to Legal Aid Bureau, so that's where you can find us in case you need to talk to us, depending on what you feel about us, about this meeting and others. Let me also mention that I'm not new to working with human rights organizations, social organizations, because for Megin in particular, I've done a number of assignments. This is the fourth one. My first assignment there was to simplify and translate the Malawi Growth and Development Strategy 2. And then I also developed their current strategic plan. I also worked on a very famous report that made it into headlines in the media in this country, the SDR review report that the Megin did 2 years ago. So it pleased them also for me to work on this report. And some of the issues I've also worked for, like HRR, way back, they're also here. It's good to meet again. So let's go into the presentation. Once again, I wanted guest of his keynote speech. I was noting down some points, and I noted two things. One of them is what Mike has already mentioned, that we could have gone straight into discussions because some of the issues that the report is covering have been ably articulated by him. So there are some aspects here that the guest of honor has mentioned, which the report will also cover. And then also the other issues that maybe the report did not really highlight. So thank you so much, my guest of honor. I think he was started on a very good note. I don't know where I should sit. I think I need to be seen somewhere, but where I'm sitting, I can't see properly. I need to shift a little bit. Good job. In terms of civic space in Malawi, as the guest of honor mentioned, a window of change that was sweeping across Africa, particularly Southern Africa, around 1990, didn't spare Malawi in terms of political pluralism and the democratization. So, as you may recall, we had a referendum back in 1993, and then we had the first general elections in 1994. And that was the beginning of the journey of political pluralism to where we are today. And what we saw from 1993, 1994, and we're still seeing up to this day, is the mushrooming of various governance institutions, state created and non-state created institutions. State created institutions, mainly those constitutional bodies like the Office of the Ombudsman, the Management Commission itself, the recent Independent Police Complaints Commission, and so many others, okay, that are covered in this report. I work with them every day. We also saw, in terms of non-state institutions, also sprouting up. The guest of honor mentioned about individuals that we used to have, like Emi Chanika, Shaire Kondoe, Linka Chere, and many others that did a good job in terms of trying to establish the rule of law and the work of CSOs in Malawi. And in those days, like he mentioned, that others have unfolded. We had Midea, we had Malawi, we had Civic. Others have unfolded. Maybe some of the reasons why they have folded are covered in this report. Next. So why did the Megin try to come up with this study? So firstly, it was to assess the status of the status quo of civic space issues in Malawi during lessons from various stakeholders. I'll mention about this when I'm talking about the methodology. Again, it was to take stock of initiatives and programming gaps that still exist and make recommendations. So those are the two key parts of this report, okay? There are some findings, okay, that we earnest through discussions with some of you that are here, others are not here, okay, and also through literature review and other interactions. These were the specific objectives, 5 of them. The legal framework, very important in terms of how do they enable the civic space in this country. Bottlenecks, advocacy issues. There's a small section within the Word document, if you got it, if it was shared with you, that highlights the key advocacy issues. This meeting, having met all of us together, will improve on that. Then also to look at issues of compliance. It's good and a great opportunity that the Angora is here with us today, specifically for objective number 4. Next. In terms of process methodology, we did a consultative participatory process in terms of coming up with this report, working closely with the client, in this case, Megin, but also working closely with some of you present in this meeting. Some of you couldn't talk directly. You had to delegate officials from your institutions. We talked. Some of you, we didn't talk to you directly, but we consulted some of the documents that you produced, or indeed some of the documents that created your institutions, because time was really not against, was really not with us in terms of talking to each one of you. This is why this meeting is very important, okay? You are contributing to the methodology for this report in terms of validating what you said or what you didn't say, and also maybe putting in the proper perspective some of the issues that maybe we got from some reports that maybe now they have changed, there's new information. So I would urge all of you, just like Megin mentioned, to improve on what was gathered when coming up with this report. Next. So in terms of the guest of honor, Abraham looked at this aspect as well. He gave a definition of civic space, which highlighted some of the issues here. He also talked about the principles for CSO's operations. Just maybe to echo what he mentioned, the European Civic Forum, AFC, defines civic space as the physical or digital environment that allows people to come together to express their opinions and take sides in terms of what they believe and don't believe in. And in terms of digital environment, this is where the guest of honor may mention about the cyberspace. Okay, very good thing, but as the report highlights, maybe not using it correctly by different sectors of the Malawian society. So according to FSS again, CSOs are there to hold government accountable, and they contribute much into making either civic space open or civic space closed. Okay, when a civic space is opened, that's where you see people freely demonstrating, and we see this. I don't know whether we see this in this country or not, but we see this sometimes maybe in other countries. People openly talking, people openly demonstrating. Okay, without people being picked up, without people being haunted after demonstrating and issues like that. Okay, the opposite of that very same coin is when civic space is closed. We see a lot of censorship, violation of people's rights, people being afraid to talk. Okay, people being afraid to talk because the fear of the consequences, particularly from state machinery. So this report mainly draws on the issues surrounding the closeness, okay, of the civic space in this country. There are a few areas where we're also talking about issues where we're doing well, where civic space is open. We have tried to balance that, but mainly we try to highlight where things are not working, because that's where we need to take action from. Next. Apologies. This slide is quite dense. For those that have got bad eyes like me, apologies. I think it's not looking good. But that's the highlights for mainly from the German Institute that deals with the civic space at law of law, the Giga Institute for African Affairs, that tried to look at some of the issues that make CSOs not perform proper. That makes CSOs be at the loggerheads with governments. For example, if you look at the first phrase, okay, we're saying the space for civic space, for civil society organizations in Africa, not only in Malawi, in Africa, is shrinking because, like the previous slide mentioned, and also the guest of honor mentioned, there's a lot of fear. Okay, and because a lot of fear, there's a lot of regulations, and particularly what caught my attention a lot when I was reading the GIGA report is this quote, which says, government also propagates restrictive policies, such as laws that curtail foreign funding for certain groups and resort to subtle ways of restricting CSOT organizations. It goes on to say, you can read from there and also from your reports. This is where also we need your indulgence, members. How can we take this message to the authorities? How can we take that message to the authorities? Because this is where our work as civil organization is entrenched. Okay. The report makes some recommendations. For example, on the issue of funding, we know that maybe government cannot fund us, okay, unless secretly, because maybe we are seen to be toying government agenda, so secretly they can fund us. But in terms of open funding, okay, where you can also openly undertake activities, we can do that. And then how do we organize ourselves, our civil society, so that we are seen to be legitimate and legitimately fighting for civic space? Those recommendations that are coming later on in this report emanate from here. Next. So, what are some of the findings that the report unearthed? Like I mentioned earlier on, when looking at methodology, some of these things were mentioned by some of you or some of your institutions. Some of them were obtained from literature that we stumbled on as we were developing the report. When we talk to a few institutions that are here and some individuals that are here, they say in terms of the foundations, in terms of the rhetoric, in terms of theory, our country is doing well. Okay, this is what our country is also known for in terms of producing documents, sometimes also talking and issues like that. We're doing so well. But in terms of the situation on the ground, in terms of the practical side of it, we're not doing so well. This is what the report unearthed. So the examples follow from the next slides. Next. During consultations, people talked about the Bill of Rights. Almost everyone that we talked to, this was the beginning. Why? Because we wanted to look at the legal environment in terms of how we are addressing that as a country. So our constitution is very good, just like any other documents in this part of the world. We are very good at that. It has a Bill of Rights that include the key rights like right to life, human dignity, liberty, equality, freedom of conscience, belief, and the freedoms of expressions, freedoms of association. Okay, and the Constitution provides these to individuals and to entities, okay, which is quite good. Okay, and there are all those sections in the Bill of Rights that guarantee all of us various forms of freedom, like Section 35, Section 36, 37, and so on. they are there. But despite this being available, being black and white, and all of us knowing them, we still find that some institutions and some individuals also find pleasure, okay, in looking at the flip side of the same and using the same, not to promote our freedoms and our rights, but rather to oppress us. Next. For example, we looked at the penal code. During consultations with some institutions like Malawi Human Rights Commission and some CSOs, they mentioned that this piece of document is very odd and is quite big, such that attempts have been made to make amendments, but still more. There are still some pockets of this penal code that still carry oppressive and draconian provisions that impinge on people's freedoms, and by the end of the day, they impinge on civic space. For example, just like the guest of honor mentioned, several sections of the penal code have been highlighted where people have been arrested, where people have found themselves in conflict with the law in one or the other, where indeed, like he mentioned, some institutions have unfolded, including media houses have unfolded because somebody, sometimes state machinery, took them to task. Okay, maybe very high court fines, and they have unfolded and are no longer here. We used to have newspapers in this country that are afforded. Maybe some of them it's because of financial mismanagement or family issues, but some of them is because they couldn't breathe. They couldn't breathe. We had like Michiru's son. I remember one time when I was in college, I used to contribute short stories, so I remember it quite a lot. The Independent by Janet Karim, who was also an activist. They are no longer in place. We have TVs and radio stations that are no longer in existence. Okay, for example, Rainbow and others. Okay, so they were created using the same provisions that are in the Constitution, but the same provisions have come to bite them and they have closed. So some of the examples that the report provides are the ones that are quite recent, like the guest of honor mentioned about the August 2024 crackdown on people that wanted to talk about the general elections that we had. And then what we saw, because what we saw there was not the first of its kind. It's what we have been seeing. It's a repeat of the same song, different versions. Okay, there are songs in this world where people have stand them as reggae, as rumba, and what. So that's what we see. Maybe that's what we should also discuss today. We keep on seeing the same things, but best just being done by different players. Okay. In one of the provisions of this report, I wanted to portray what is currently happening with people that have been arrested because of the demonstrations, because of cracking. The demonstrations have been happening for the past 5 years. So saying one, we're seeing but I think it did come out properly. I think I'll put it back in the report. What we saw is, okay, it is well and good that they have been picked, but the questions are where were we all this time? Okay, where were we all this time? And I also wrote that even the manner that it now is being done in terms of going on with their cases where they are arrested, just walking 2 steps out of the courtroom that they are picked again, whatever, speaks volumes in terms of how far state machinery and state institutions can act. But we have seen this before, and maybe it's not the end of it all. Next. Apart from the penal code, when we conducted consultations, you also talked about the access to information law, the ATI laws. Very famous, very popular, depending on where you're standing. It's either popular, it's either famous, or both. It's a very good piece of registration, and very few countries in the region have it. But there have been issues, apart from the fact that it took long to be operationalized. We see issues such as the lack of adequate funding to the policy holder, in this case the Malawi Manners Commission, to implement the act to the full. Okay, the report, the Wade report that you have talks about the mercy of the donors. Just like most of your work civil organizations, they came in and now we saw the ATI report biting. But as the reported in the Journal of Global Knowledge, Memory and Communication, 23, there are setbacks, out of setbacks in terms of implementation or effective implementation. I think I will say that word in the report, effective implementation of the HI law. Some of it seems to be deliberate frustration by MDAs. Some of it may be external forces, like taking advantage of the fact that most of the people in this country are illiterate. Okay, and this illiteracy is being now is being funded favor. This one is not in the report. It's being funded favor by some of the things we are seeing. For example, that we should be conversing in our local language in our parliament. So those are some of, this is just from me as a comment. It's not part of the report, and it's not part of the civic space. Next. The guest of honor mentioned about this one. The Electronic Transaction and Cybersecurity Act. Very good piece of registration, but in terms of contributing to the legal environment, opening up the civic space in Malawi, it is also being manipulated. Okay, it's being manipulated by institutions that are supposed even to promote it. He gave an example of one of our colleagues, renowned journalist, Gregory Gondwe, who went into hiding somewhere. It's not easy to go into hiding. You forfeit several of your freedoms, even the freedoms of your immediate family members. They're also taken away. Okay. It's just an example because it's still fresh. The report also talks about the Mr. McDonald Mwari, who also had a similar fate in Blantyre, and the others. So it's an example of illegal, unpalatable, unfair legal environment. Remember, we're still on number 1, where we're looking at the legal environment and the civic space in Malawi. And some of the examples that the report highlights, the paper that was produced by attorneys at law, in that there's some institutions, like I've mentioned, that are taking advantage of the language in the provision to violate the same. Okay. And according to the United Nations, during the UPR, they also observed that this act, in many ways, do violate our freedoms in various ways as individuals, but collectively also as CSOs. Okay, where they mentioned issues like protected flag, okay, emblems. What's the full name? Emblems and what? Yeah, those ones. Yeah. You can't use Malawi. And yesterday I didn't look at it properly because I think I was at a busy place. Some people are being told to drop Malawi. And I know some of the civil society organizations here that have ever tried to register their names as Malawi, what. They were told, no, don't use Malawi. But they're in Malawi. And you know, sometimes, okay, you would say what is in a name, but sometimes the name would immediately say your mandate and vision, whatever. Okay, where, for example, if you put Malawi, it would be better than putting national or putting center. So you will see that most of us were using center for what, center for whatever, because we were told don't use Malawi. Okay. Next. This one. Now, this one is a big story. I'm looking at Wanalope. We'll discuss during plenary, but this is what people mentioned. People said the first version of the act was good. They liked it somehow. Of course, I recall the battles that were there with Kongoma. Some of us thought Kongoma is disappearing and dying, but I think it was sustained. But there were issues now in the amended one. Okay. The amended one has some provisions that the CSOs, unfortunately, up to this day, are still unhappy with. Okay, so vajakumalayo kuno timatero umapondedwa ndi high hero. No, I'm okay. I'm okay. So it's still there, still trampling on some of us. But maybe time has come to revise. There's no, when I asked around, so there's no limit to how many times a law can be amended. Is there? Maybe legal minds here would tell us, no, it's enough. It's enough of amending this. Maybe for Moonford would say, but they looked at the restrictive registration processes and requirements. They mentioned about that. So restrictive, aimed at maybe from state point of view, is aimed at making sure that the correct one, the real CSOs, do register and operate. But others that we talked to said maybe they're aimed at choking us. That's the word they were using, to choke us, they have to operate. And then They also talked that maybe there's too much power in Ngora through the CEO that they can also close the institution for a number of reasons. Then they also talked about the issue of disclosure of funding. That one is too contentious. Okay, disclosure of funding. Where did you get money for doing this? Okay. When maybe the donor, for some good reasons, prefers not to be known. Of course, Angola, okay, colleagues, I think you have heard this before. Angola has got very good reasons and grounds for that, because I think they're also protecting, first of all, the country in terms of being a haven for terrorism. Then they are protecting us, all of us, in terms of money laundering. Money laundering is there, it comes, it bites, and when it bites, it's not good. So it would be like maybe the state was not there to protect us. So in this meeting, I think by the end of the day, maybe our panelists will also pick it up, apart from being picked up in the plenary discussions. Which way should we go? Fortunately, the report somewhere, I think I'll talk about it later on, that we were also taking advantage of as CSOs, because we were also divided, like I said earlier on, Timasiana. Okay, I'm being Marayu, Timasiana. I gave the example of Kupuna Goda. I'm being Marayu, it's okay, hey, it's okay. Kumasabale, Amanya Makof. Unko Punda Bangono, Makof. So, as CSOs, we need to speak one voice. But I'll talk to this later on. Next. I think I've already talked to this. Yes. The policy environment. When you go to Capitol Hill, okay. I've spent 5 years at Capitol Hill. I was a TA there between 2019 and 2024, 23. When you go to Capitol Hill, by the way, Capitol Hill also includes those that are not Mpanda Mujet. Capitol Hill, what space Mulibe. You will find that there are so many policies. Some of them, you don't hear about them until it's time to review them again. Then you're, what could the policy mean? Or sometimes when you are lucky, you go to international meetings, that's when you hear about policies for your own country, this country. There are so many policies. But unfortunately, if you, as CSOs, there's none for us. There's none. So I don't know, maybe it's okay. It's okay, as we end up, maybe we don't need it. But in terms of regulatory need, we may need some guidance. Okay, maybe it's the same like what Ngora mentioned, to say, apart from protecting the state, we also need to be protected. So maybe apart from the legal provisions, maybe we also need a CSO-wide policy to guide our operations, our being, how we conduct our business, how we relate with ourselves, how we relate with others. I think it is very important. Okay, but we have none. The report mentions about the dichotomy, the irony, I mean, in that none of the consultations mentioned about this, but there is the Ngora policy, I think, which we don't know, most of us. If we know, then I think it didn't come out in the consultations. But when you look at the Ngora policy, it's not much on our work as CSOs. It's much on work of NGOs and what the state is supposed to do, what they're supposed to do. not for CSOs as such. Okay? So maybe we are comfortable to say, no, there's the Angola policy, but I think the Angola policy, the way I looked at it, doesn't really cover us. But I might be wrong. This is why we have this meeting. This meeting is to make things correct and agree. So let us discuss that. Next. The report also looked at some of the bottlenecks that are there that choke our operations. Again, we would want to hear from you. How do we refine this? You know better because you are the ones that are feeling the pinch of these bottlenecks. The regulatory overreach. I've talked about how the NGO Act frustrates our operations. That's the first one that was being mentioned, to say, no, we can't breathe. If we are breathing while on oxygen, which is not proper breathing. We need the free breathing, which is free space. Then I earlier on talked about this. I talked about this. The report highlights some meetings that we have had as CSOs, mainly during the development of the NGO Act. And these two instances that are quoted in our report mention of instances where we are divided as CSOs. One or two individuals keeping all of us. Even for us to arrive here, even to stand here and talk, there's government somewhere. Okay? Government cannot be taken away from whatever we do, even when we're sleeping in our homes. Okay, there's that song, Amadiyani, our young colleagues or journalists would know, Marichiricho Sendi Boma. Okay? If you forget, maybe you beat up your wife, then you see the Boma comes in. If you mess up on the road doing this and that, government comes in. Okay? Even if I start messing up here as I'm talking here, they will come in and I'll be alone. Okay? So they are there. But you find that the following day, okay, the same us will start now showing different colors. Okay? So maybe it's lack of cohesion, or maybe it's behavioral. This is what the people that we talked to said. Maybe it's behavioral. You look at tomorrow. You look at tomorrow. You look at your family. Okay. So say, different zaini. How you could even at home. I remember one very vocal activist mentioned, okay, mentioned in Blanta that nafeso to Diego, okay, nafeso to Diego. So it comes, maybe it comes time, but those things, they also choke our operations because sometimes even in the eyes of those that we stand for, in the eyes of those that give us money, we are seen not to be serious, okay? And particularly what suffers is the organization as you move on. Then we talked to the Independent Complaints Commission. They also mentioned something that is checking the operations of CSOs, because also, like I mentioned, we operate within a government system, and government system has got a law enforcement, and sometimes the law enforcement is so biased, is so compromised. Fortunately, for ICC, they didn't mention that it's unprofessionalism, but they used the polite words, which was to say the police are sometimes not aware of their own enforcement needs. So they're enforcing laws, but maybe they are not aware of maybe where they can stop, where they can start, how far they can go with some of the things that are enforcing. Next. The study also looked at the minority groups, particularly through three groups of minority populations. The guest of honor mentioned about the fourth one, okay, women. So I think with your indulgence during plenary, with your indulgence, maybe during the panel discussion that we'll have, we need also to look at that. I think the report didn't really cover much women. I think we should include that. I borrowed that from the guest honor's speech. So we looked at, for example, people living with HIV. The umbrella body in this country is Manate Plus. We talked to Manate Plus, and some of the things they mentioned are those ones, to say stigma and discrimination, okay? The narrative report that was submitted, unfortunately, was so careful not to mention names, but we're all aware that some people have been taken to court, some very influential people, socialites, because they disclosed other people's status. It can be very traumatizing, okay? And that would suppress their freedoms and shrink the space in which they want to operate, because they don't want to be labeled, so they would hide, which has got so many implications. And they also mentioned that there are also even institutionalized stigma and discrimination. For example, recruitment. They mentioned that maybe, for example, in the MDF, they're still not interested in recruiting people with the HIV. So we chatted, I remember, to say, but some people that are living with HIV are more powerful, are more energetic than those that are not living with HIV. But maybe they have other reasons. And then also looked at people with disabilities. Unfortunately, of course, we didn't, our schedules never materialized, but it's good that they are here. But in terms of literature review, we found that just like for people living with HIV, government has opened up the environment for free expression, okay? But through creation of, like both for HIV and people with disabilities, even for other persons, recently, for the past maybe 7 years, others even as late as last year, there has been registration regarding people with disabilities, older persons, and for HIV 3 years back. But you still find that there are pockets of being suppressed in their day-to-day operations. This is where, for example, there's a recommendation that we have suggested to see when we are meeting as youth organizations, we should also remember this. We should also remember this Manate Plus, Manepo, Makoda, okay? They should be taken on board so that we work with them. Some of these are new babies in terms of advocacy. So the sooner I do that, the better. Next. So I think I've already talked. I've already talked to this, these three groups, to say, of late we have seen enactment of laws, but and policies and what. That he looked at, and he, just like maybe for all the sectors, the funding space is shrinking for all the sectors. However, the report notes that there are some sectors that are still being prioritized in terms of funding, like climate change, like social protection, but in terms of governance and rule of law, the space is shrinking so much, and the act just adds to our misery because it's sending away some people that want to help us because for fear of disclosure and being mistaken and now being in conflict with the government. Next. So, having looked at the those findings and the others that you add, those are the ones that were compiled by us in terms of talking to you, reading about you. Those are the things. But this meeting, one of its aims is to add on those ones and also remove some of them. So having looked at all those, these were some of the advocacy issues that maybe we need to dwell on. Again, maybe, I'm not sure how the panel discussion has been structured, but I wish we should also look at the advocacies. Maybe indirectly, because we are still here, we'll also be taking issues from panelists and our discussions in terms of what also should constitute advocacy for our CSOs. So one is limited freedom of expression. There are still pockets of hindrance. Remember the bottlenecks and the scanning of the environment that we looked at earlier on. Abuse of laws by law enforcement agencies. Freedom of expression, mainly for human rights defenders. And then the issues of funding. Next. The report also looked at the recommendations. Some of these recommendations are directly coming from our interaction. So, for example, we're asking you, what do you recommend? Having talked, can you recommend something? So you could recommend this. Some of them are coming from our own analysis. Say, having said this, maybe this could work, maybe this will not work. This again is where we are called to action, colleagues. We are the people on the ground. Okay. What else should be done? What should be refined better from what we said, from what we gathered? So we need to add to this list. We need to sanitize this list of recommendations. One is protection of human rights defenders. This is in line with the African Commission on Human Rights and People's Rights of 2024 and the Marrakesh Declaration on expanding the civic space and promoting and protecting human rights in 2018. Sometimes we want to do a very good job, okay? Sometimes we want to do a very good job as civil organizations, where we really want to stand for the rights of all of us in this country. But we have been mistaken to toe some lines, okay? Even when you repeat the talk, say, no, we are not towing this line. We are towing people's line. It's very difficult, okay? And when they don't understand you, that's when now they start looking for you in the evenings and at night. So they would follow you to your house. They would follow you to a social gathering. We've seen that, eh? Okay. Just because maybe what we looked at earlier on about the Giga Institute or whatever. So, rights of human rights defenders in Malawi, no, are not safe, are not okay. They don't know when they can be ambushed and by who and how. So we need to work on that. Then the policy that I talked about, if we are in agreement that we need some direction, and like I said, this would also be an opportunity for a partnership with government. Okay. Currently, there's some partnerships with the Open Government Partnership and others, but let those be put into authoritative documents, okay, so that we safeguard against tomorrow. Because tomorrow, someone will stand up and say, yes, no. Who did this? Huh? Who did this? This is not on, but it's gone. Next. Borrowing from other sectors. This was just an attempt. Again, on this one, if you notice some of the things I'm talking about, there are areas in the report which are done and dusted. There are other areas in the report that still need the dialogue what we are doing today. Maybe the dialogue will not end today, but we should start it, okay, through plenary presentation discussions when I finish, or through the panel discussion. Maybe this is one of them, to say there are some sectors like transport sector, agriculture, health, where there's some organized funding. Maybe we can also have some organized funding so that through Ngora, and the report mentions Ngora, through Ngora, okay, you get some levy, and then that levy is well distributed among us using guidelines like the ones that are trying to do a CDF. And that wapanga za CDF gugu. If first because wapanga that. Okay, we have seen recently the report talks about the tourism levy. We are not enjoying as we used to enjoy when these days we go to the lake, for example, because pa Biripaja, mabulaka 1% levy. Okay, amafuta so if so, we can try it from. This was just a suggestion for me, and I knew we'll meet here so that maybe if it is something that makes sense. I know the thing about CSOs and NGOs is that when we say let's fundraise this, we say we are very good at writing proposals. So we are very good at writing proposals. We push it to SAFE, push it to NCATCA and the others, that maybe we can get extra resources through some of these initiatives. Cultivating a culture of unity of purpose among CSOs. The report talks about an numerous institution for us. I had in mind HRCC, the NAP, HRDC. I don't know how well organized are we, because it's around this that even the recommendation 5.3 is also meant to say if we can have some innovative way of putting together some resources, okay? Not the resources that sometimes people think we get somewhere, which this report did not cover because we wanted to cover only documented issues, but maybe this open access of resources. And then inclusive advocacy, where I think I did mention in the 2 previous slides that for the minority groups, let them also learn the ropes from us in terms of our boldness, okay, in advancing our rights. I'm talking of institutions like institutions like Manepo, institutions like Makoda and Fedoma, Gender GCN. How do we take them on board within our fold? Then, as I mentioned earlier on, to say some of the things that we have with government, for example, the OGB, maybe we need to properly institutionalize them, okay? One of them is putting them into policies and making sure that everybody is on board. Next, this is just a conclusion to say that if we are to do a SWOT analysis here, okay, if we are to do a SWOT analysis here, which I know we will do, if we agree to do a policy, and maybe we'll invite some of us to continue where we have stopped, we'll do a SWOT analysis, okay? And that SWOT analysis definitely will include the strengths that we have as a country in terms of creating an enabling space for CSOs to be regulated and work in Malawi. Their strengths will be there. And some of them are mentioned there. We have constitutional bodies, okay? We have the Ngora, okay? We have the Kongoma, that provides space for all of us to freely operate. So the weaknesses are there. The recommendations provide for how we can override them, and this meeting will build on that. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your attention. This is what we thought this meeting should build on. This meeting should sanitize, and then we have a strong report. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mahala. He deserves another big round of applause. Yes, so I would want to suggest 2 things. One, I think we've been here for long. Some of us came in very early in the morning, so we have refreshments there. But before we go for the refreshments, as per tradition, we'll need to do a group photo just outside there at the entrance, and then we proceed for the refreshments. And then when we get back, we'll take a few immediate reactions from the presentation before we get into a panel of discussion. Is that a fair way of proceeding? Yeah, thank you. I got most notes, so we'll proceed as such. So just out here upon the entrance, that's where we are going to do a group photo. Then we'll come in for the refreshments. Then we'll proceed with the immediate reactions before ushering ourselves into a panel of discussion. Thank you so much. We may proceed with a group of, a group photo. Thank you.
Yes, indeed, and this is where now we take a break after a presentation made by Mr. LILONGWE, a consultant who developed the study for Malawi Economics Justice Network with support from the Norwegian Church Aid, Dan Church Aid Malawi. And actually, we first heard a speech made by the guest of honor, Mr. Peter Chisi from the Malawi Human Rights Commission, and later on we heard the presentation, and the delegates to the conference, the delegates to the workshop are now taking a group photo outside, and after that there will be a short break, and there which we shall come back to give you the proceedings later on. Keep on watching Lunta Television.